All right, and we are recording. So thanks, folks, for joining today for our Service Fabric Community Q&A number 57 today. We have Sukanya and others from the team who will be sharing with us today. A quick reminder that this call will be shared out later on to both the YouTube channel and to the Azure Connection Programs community. We'll be monitoring the chat for any questions or comments throughout the session. Other than that, Sukanya, go ahead, take it away.
Thank you, Cesar. So we've got a couple of really exciting demos coming up, and we have both Amish and Branislav joining in. And Branislav is actually joining in from Serbia, so it's pretty late in the evening for him. So I'm actually going to let him go first for the demo, and then we can kind of take it from there. So Branislav, it's all yours.
Thanks, Sukanya. Let me share my screen. So I hope all of you can see the presentation.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So feature that I will be demoing today is called dynamic node tags. So what actually dynamic node tags or node tagging is, it's a way to dynamically influence service placement so that you don't need to use placement constraints every time. And essentially what you do is you tag every node you want with a certain tag. That tag can be essentially anything. It's a string, so it does not need to represent a certain physical ability or of the machine, and you can add or remove them in bulk or one by one. And after that, your service that you want to place will be requiring a tag or set of tags. I will explain that a little bit later. So most of you are familiar with placement constraints, and they are the prime way to influence service placement currently in Service Fabric. But they have one huge downside, is that whenever you want to change something, if you want to change node property, you need to do a cluster upgrade. And node tagging allows you to do this through PowerShell without any impact on the cluster. And the primary benefit of node tagging is the time that you need to actually influence placement. One downside that I would like to mention is that node tagging is completely transparent. So managing the tags, adding, removing, is completely in the hands in your hands, essentially. And Service Fabric in the background does not mess with the tags. How to enable node tagging? There is a feature switch under placement and load balancing section in cluster manifest, and you need to enable that feature switch in order to use node tagging. Manipulation of the manipulation of the tags on the node can be done in various ways, either to C# API or REST API, or in this case, in this example here, PowerShell commands. So in regular fashion, you specify a node name that you want to add or remove node tags from, and then you specify a list of the tags that need to be added or removed. And so now we come to the main event. There is actually updating, or this applies to creation as well in the same way, updating your service to require tags. There's two types. There are two types of tags that can be required. There are tags required for placement and tags required for running the service. Tags required for placement are required only at the time where you place the service on the node. So if you, for whatever reason, remove the tag from the node, replica will stay where it was when it was placed. Prime example for this use case is, let's say, container activator. And you take your container activator, it gets placed on a node, and you say, you tag your node with has container activator. And your container that you want to activate is requiring has container activator tag, gets placed on that node, and for whatever reason, container activator crashes. Container activator is not needed anymore as container is up and running, and that node doesn't have the container activator anymore, but your container should continue to run, and there is no need to move it out. Just you should not place another container on that node. Other set of tags that is available is tags required to run. These tags act almost like placement constraints because they are required for both placement and running. So if the tag gets removed, then your replica will be moved out to some node that has that replica, has that tag present. So the same examples that apply to placement constraints apply here. So in the PowerShell, similar in REST and C#, you update your service with tags required to run and a list of tags. In this example, it is only one tag, but that can be a list, and the tags required to place. So now we will move to the demo. Here I have a cluster of 5 nodes and some example application. And I will be focusing on this orchestrator stateful service, which has one primary replica on node 0. And we want to move that replica around to dynamically without any changes to the cluster. So we connect to the cluster through PowerShell, since this is a local cluster. And we will now add some tags to some nodes. Let's say node 4, we will add 2 tags. And after that is executed, we can go to the node 4 and to its details. And we can see that tags are indeed present. And let's do another one. Let's say node number 3. And that node also contains tags. We can check that nodes 2, 1, and 0 don't have any tags here. Now let's move this replica around, we will take the update service command. Keep in mind that tag X is required only for placement, and tag Y is required to run. So when we execute this command, we are confident with this operation. And now, after a few seconds, Service Fabric will start building a new replica on a node that has required tags. Since we updated this service, and in its details, we see the service tags and tags required to place and tags required to run. It takes some time for the secondary to build. Okay, so we are here still having a violation for constraint non-tagging until it refreshes, and we can see that here we have only one primary replica on node 3, and that is indeed a node that has tags that we added. So first, let me show you here the constraint violation is gone. Let me show you how tags required to place work. So we know that tag X is required only for placement, and we will remove that tag from node 3. And if everything is right, nothing should move. So we removed Service Fabric, remove Service Fabric node tags. Node name is node 3. Node tags is tag X, and we go to node 3 and to its details, and we will see that tag Y is only available. And now to actually move this replica to another node, we remove the tag Y, and now we see that when Service Fabric refreshes, it starts building another replica on node 4, which is the node that only has the required tags remaining. Node 3 now has no tags, and node 4, since we didn't touch it, has its tags intact. Now, of course, we have a constraint violation for not tagging, and we are waiting for Service Fabric to move the primary replica to node 4. So this operation has completed, and we are now waiting only for Service Fabric to refresh and remove this warning here.
Nice. Thanks, Branislav.
And I'm also just, do you have any questions?
Yes. Whit, you can actually go ahead and unmute and ask the question.
Yeah, so I guess just to be clear, if the service is specifying the tag replacement, does that also impact the secondary replicas? So for to build on that, if I've got a min replica of 3, then do I have to ensure that I have at least 3 machines that match the 2 place constraint in
yes.
order to ensure it's copied on 3 machines?
Yes. So I wasn't able to show it here since local one box is limited in some way. But yes, if you have as many replicas as you have, all of them need to have a proper place to be seated.
Okay, and then I guess a follow-up, do I have to specify the tag in full, or is there any kind of pattern matching for the tag?
No.
Like starts with whatever.
No, tags are strictly compared as strings.
Okay. Case sensitive?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So any more questions for node tagging in particular, please go ahead and ask right now, because Janoslav's going to jump out of the call after this. So any questions? Going once. If you guys have any follow-up questions, you can always kind of post it, and we'll get back to you on that. Thank you again, Branislav. This was really useful. Thank you for taking the time in the evening to present.
Anytime.
So the next, we have Mike and Unmesh. Unmesh is going to do a demo on Bring Your Own VNet. But before that, we want to kind of talk about the Service Fabric managed clusters and the refresh that's coming up. So Mike, it's all yours.
Hello. So I'm trying to present, so let me know when everybody can see it.
Yep,
See
sure
on my
can.
side? Cool. Hopefully it's the right view. So like Sukanya said, I'm going to lead into this with a little bit of a product update, and then we'll do a demo, and then we'll kind of wrap up with a little short look at the roadmap and a call to action. So this is to focus on the Azure Service Fabric Managed Cluster Service offering. I think we've alluded to this last couple community calls. We'll be talking about some refresh updates. So here we are. And please drop questions in chat, queue them up, or hold off until we're kind of done with this, and then we'll answer verbally at the end here. So just to recap what we currently made available, I don't want to drain this entire slide, but I want to present at least a good feature list so people are aware. You know, we did make a GA release available back in May. Time flies. That's been about almost 4 months now. So we focused on these high-level areas. I won't touch on all bullet points. Ease of deployment, management and scaling, networking, security. Again, if you have any specific questions, glad to get into it. Just want to kind of set the stage.
Mike, we
see?
can barely hear you. Your voice is kind of.
Let me change this microphone. It's probably a lot louder.
Yeah, much better. Thank you.
So I can repeat, but yeah, we focused on initial GA release on these main areas of ease of deployment, management and scaling, and networking security. As you can see, we had a lot of bullet points underneath each one. I'm glad to take questions on any of these, but this is what's currently available in the GA API. I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead. So what's coming up in our refresh? So we have a preview API coming out here by hopefully August 26th, 27th. To be broadly available. I can drop the API version in chat. It's actually our Swagger, our actual templates are actually online already. The JSON spec I should be specific about. And in this release, externally, we focused on improving mostly our network and security gaps. We had a lot of requests for customization around this space. So specifically, these are the 3 areas that we're really bringing into scope. So the first one off the top, and I'll pivot into the demo probably here, is the bring your own virtual network scenario. So this it's pretty straightforward, allows you to have an existing VNet or create a VNet on the side, and then specify a subnet in that VNet, and then all the resources will get deployed into it. It's that cut and dry. So this enables people to leverage the existing VNet, the existing security policies, existing express route setup, private links, et cetera, et cetera. Many reasons for this this ask. So I'll probably pause right here. I think it makes sense in line just to go ahead and pivot to the demo if you're ready, Mesh. Otherwise, I can continue on, but is that okay, Mesh?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. Then we
So let me share my screen real quick. So thank you, Mike, for getting this started. I think I was going to talk about managed clusters a little bit, but since you have already done that, maybe we can just skip over it. So the first GA version of managed clusters basically had this encapsulation model where all the resources needed to provision a cluster, such as the network and the compute and storage, all were provisioned by the Service Fabric RP itself. So thereby simplifying what the customers need to manage. But while we did that, there is also a need for certain customizations, as you said, that the customers may want to create the cluster in an existing VNet, and few other customizations that this release actually allows with respect to the network settings. Bring your VNet is one of them, which lets you bring your own subnet and create the cluster in that subnet. What it means is like the virtual machine scale set that the cluster gets created on is that virtual machine scale set is injected in the subnet that you provide. So in this release, we basically add a subnet ID property to the cluster resource, the managed cluster resource that you can use to provide your own existing subnet, and we use that one to create the cluster instead of like provisioning one ourselves. So this is basically the doc that talks about bring your own virtual network and what you need to do to configure your own subnet and create the cluster in that subnet. So we need a couple of things. First, obviously we need the subnet to exist. So you need to create the subnet. And next, you need to provide permissions to the service fabric resource provider so that the VMSs that is created for this managed cluster gets injected into the subnet. So we, in short, we need the network contributor role definition, like role on that subnet. So the first step in the demo is to create a subnet and then assign the and do the role assignment. So this is a sample template which basically creates a simple VNet with a single subnet. And then the next thing this template does is to create a role assignment. And there are a couple of things you need in this role assignment. You need to know the principal ID for the Azure Service Fabric resource provider, and you need to know the role definition ID. So these things are simple to find out. The document kind of mentions that in the first couple of steps. So if you run get az ad service principal with the name Azure Service Fabric resource provider, you should get the principal ID. And similarly for the role definition ID, you could do the same for network contributor role and then fill those into your template. Or if you want to do the role assignment via PowerShell, either way, it's fine. And we could basically create the subnet with that. So let me go ahead and quickly do the deployment. So I'm creating a new resource group here, and I'm going to deploy the template that creates the VNet and does the role assignment into that resource group. So this step should be quick. And after this subnet gets created, we will basically take the subnet ID and copy it into the template to create the managed cluster. So since this is completed, we can see here that the VNet is created. Now we can go ahead and copy the subnet ID. And this is a simple managed cluster template. And in the parameters, I'm going to quickly copy this new subnet ID and then deploy. So this is a simple managed cluster with a single node type. And that node type or the scale set that runs that node type is going to get created in the new subnet. So this step is kind of slow. So I'm going to run the deployment, and we are probably going to look at an existing deployment that I already made so that we don't have to wait for this deployment to complete, because this will provision the virtual machine scale set that may take a few minutes. And we probably don't want to wait for that. So this is deploying. So if we look at an existing deployment, so this is my VNet that I created, and this is the managed cluster that was created. And in the VNet, if you see the virtual machines that where the cluster is running are now created inside this VNet that I created, instead of like managed cluster creating its own VNets. So this one is getting created, but I think it will take a few minutes for the VMs actually to get provisioned and assigned. So I think we can maybe stop for questions at this point and let the deployment continue. We probably don't want to wait for the deployment to finish for the demo.
Thank you, Mesh. Yeah, let's keep putting questions in chat and I'll hold off on any verbal questions. I want to try to get through the content first in case it takes a while. Might be some good questions here, so cool. I do like how quick and easy that was. So as I put in chat, because I know the chat's not saved and recording, the documentation that he quickly flashed up and these samples will be available aligned with the general release. So tentatively, again, by the end of next week or August 26th, 27th, you should see that all go live. So let me go ahead and flip back to presenting my presentation. And please let me know when you can see, hopefully back to slide 3 here.
I see what's coming in August.
Okay, what's coming on? So continuing on from bring your own VNet. So again, thank you for that demo. Nice and simple. One simple parameter you have to insert in a template and you get deployed into an existing VNet. So the second one, I think Whit was asking about this in chat already. What about load balancer stuff? So bring your own load balancer support. This one gets a little more complicated, but I have a couple example scenarios in graphical form here to help set the stage. So basically, people have been asking for how do I bring in my own load balancer with my own static IPs on it, my own static public IPs or internal IPs, as Whit was asking. How do I have multiple load balancers? Can I do load balancers per node type? The answer is hopefully yes with all this. This is a preview, right? But we are testing all these scenarios and enabling them here. So yeah, so here we go. So this will help with additional front ends. This is all for secondary node types. So you can see in these two graphical examples that the primary node type still maintains our managed load balancer setup. That is still going to be a requirement in the middle of my screen for this. And then for every secondary node type you have, you can create or bring your own load balancer. And then when you bring your own load balancer, you will get your own VNet, a subnet associated with that. So you'll have a separate network security group you can manage rule sets for. There'll be the documentation will talk about this. We still require outbound access from these secondary node types. So you still have to get out to the internet from them. So I will caveat that it can't be like, I'll air quote, truly internal only. You still have to allow them to reach our Azure properties and possibly like CRLs for certificate trust building. But yeah, so I'll continue go on for here. So the last one here is IPv6. This one is again a lot more straightforward, but we are enabling IPv6 support. So this will enable dual stack IPv4 and v6 for both the managed networking scenario. So you don't have to bring your own network, but just the regular built-in scenario. And if you bring your own network, we will also support and enable IPv6 for that. So we do strive with this to still keep load balancer and NSG rule management simple. So it's all still template based. And if you make a rule entry in the load balancer through the template or through NSG, it'll apply it to both IPv4 and IPv6 front end, which may be a limit itself, right? Because you're like, hey, I want to be able to manage those things separately. We are thinking about that, but not currently in this preview release. So get to the roadmap and then be glad to open it up for questions here. So from preview to GA, so this is of course our primary focus with these initial features. and also some additional CLI capabilities. Right now, if you go use PowerShell CLI tools, you will not get, like, for example, IPv6 data in a response. So we want to, of course, pull things in like that. This is a small thing, but we do lack email notification support for upgrades. So if there's any failure or problem with a automatic upgrade, in the classic SFRP, you would get an email, or at least have the capability. We still lack that in SFMC, so we're pulling that in. Under ease of deployment, so reverse proxy, this has been a fairly big ask from quite a few people, quite a few customers. So we are planning to pull in a YARP-based proxy under the support umbrella here. This will be initially enabled via application deployment, at least in preview. So what that means is you'll be able to pull in an actual YARP-based package and deploy it to your Service Fabric cluster. It will be a sidecar process or a manual process initially as we work through the preview, with the goal of making it as simple as a push button deployment, the same way you can do backup or DNS today in SFMC. Management and scaling, so we are working on auto scale. It unfortunately didn't make the initial preview release here, but we are aiming to have it available by the end of September under the same preview API. We just have to finish the coding with initial capability to scale off metrics such as CPU, RAM, disk usage, emitted by VMSS today. And then longer term, the plan is to include additional capabilities to scale off internal runtime metrics. So that's further out. Additional safety mechanisms. So we've seen some cases where customers have gone to the VMSS provider directly and done things like adjust scale numbers and stuff, which you're not supposed to do. So we're thinking of ways where we can actually actively block those. And under the umbrella of safety and try to protect our customers. There's still a lot of people who are transitioning right from classic and have that mentality. It makes a lot of sense that you're used to going to VMS directly. We don't want you to go to VMSS directly. We want you to go to the SFMC front door and adjust the node type parameters there. Networking security. So we're looking at also adding accelerated networking support, support for management. This one, support for managed multiple load balancers. So the bring your own scenarios, I'll flip back and forth real quick. Hopefully it refreshes fairly quick. So all these bring your own scenarios here for the virtual network or load balancer, or actually the load balancer specifically, we want to also offer a managed solution where possible. So this is going to depend a lot on where we see uptake and what people face around challenges and how far we have to go with this. But at a high level, we want to offer a managed solution where it makes sense. So kind of bring it fully into the fold, if you will. So you can deploy managed multiple load balancers with a click of a button and don't have to do all this pre-work that's alluded to in the documentation. Enable simple scenarios like multiple IPs. Hey, I just want a couple more IPs, or to be able to scale with the existing one load balancer you've built in. And also on the bring your own VNet, and even the managed scenario, allow a subnet per node type. So right now, the biggest gap, if you will, on the bring your own VNet scenario is that when you provide a subnet, you can only provide one subnet. You can't say, if I have 3 node types, use this subnet for node type 1 and this subnet for node type 2. So we're looking again to see if we can pull that into this preview or if it'll be a feature release. This one's been a long time coming. It's more of a runtime feature, but of course we'll offer it too, is full cluster managed identity support and support for versionless secrets. So we do support secrets today, but you have to be tied to a specific version. If you do versionless, it enables some really cool scenarios. You can pull in the latest secret, do auto rotation, etc. And also this last one, encryption at host. So this is for disk encryption generally. We do offer disk encryption today, but encryption at host is a newer methodology to accomplish the same thing. In a way, there's caveats. I can link to documentation. The biggest thing for us is this will prevent usage of alternate disks, so we have to be careful about making this like a default, but this is something we're looking at. So before I open the floor, just a call to action, everybody. I know we talk about this all the time. Please use GitHub. Please file features. Please tag me. This helps us greatly prioritize what people are actually wanting and needing, and helps shape the the future of the product. So, thank you. I will shush. Questions, please.
There are a couple of questions that you've already addressed, I think, but I'll just repeat them. So Sumit basically asked, just to make sure I understand, with bring your own VNet, we can have each scale set be mapped to different subnets within the same VNet, and each of those subnets could theoretically be linked to separate NSGs.
There's a lot. That's a really dense question. So the current bring your own VNet solution allows you to specify one subnet for the entire resource group or the entire set of resources that SFMC uses for IP allocation. What we are looking at adding is allowing you, I don't know if you can see my mouse on the screen. I should ask. Can you see my mouse on the screen? I don't know if you can in this mode.
No.
Let me flip to a different view. Hold on, give me 1 second, because it helps to, I think, point around. Can you see this okay, my screen now?
Sure.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so I think it helps with the mouse to visualize this. So the bring your own VNet solution, I know this is bring your own LLB, but very similar. So imagine this is this ring right here is the scope of the managed resource, the full managed resource. Right now, if you bring your own VNet, it'll replace this blue area with the subnet you provide. Just one big blue box. What we are looking at adding, and I think if I understood the question correctly, is how do I do 3 blue boxes? We cannot support that right this with this initial release, but we're looking at adding that in. What I was saying with, and this is where it gets a little confusing, and this is advanced scenario stuff, is if you are bringing your own load balancer, then these become separate blue boxes, but not if you bring your own VNet. So if you want to have independent subnets per node type, you have to use the built-in networking support, so you cannot provide your own VNet. But you will get the capability of having your own VNet subnets here with their own NSGs. And I hopefully answered that and didn't confuse you further. Whoa, I just lost my monitor. I can't see chat now at all, so please let me know if...
I can read out the next question. So Wit has a question, since managed abstracts out the machines to some degree, can one use placement groups or node tags with managed resources?
Yes.
And a follow-up question from Wit is, do you have any updates on reverse proxy? I know you had a slide which talked about YARP, but I think the link that he shared out also talked about traffic. Do you want to talk about that one?
So do you want to verbalize that with, like, what do you...
Yeah, so
reverse,
I guess, yeah, I just linked to whatever the issue was that YARP had met with the Service Fabric team in June. Great revelations were had, and there hasn't been any update on that since. So, Service Fabric support didn't make the 1.0 release. So, just kind of curious, if y'all know anything about where that stands.
So I do. We are targeting September for a preview of this capability right here for the YARP-based proxy.
And
so,
is that only in managed?
To be fully fleshed out, it should not only apply to managed because it is going to be truly a sidecar application deployment. So you should be able to deploy it to any Service Fabric cluster. We just have to figure out what scope we want to support, if that makes sense.
Exciting.
So it'll work anywhere. We're not going to prevent that, but where we actually support it is still to be fleshed out completely. The GitHub repo does exist. The fork is there. It is private right now. So once we have it a little more fleshed out, we intend to make it public, and then you'll see all the bits. So it'll be
Great.
all open source.
Very exciting. Thank you.
Yeah. Did you also have a question on Trafic, or was that someone else?
That was someone else, I think.
Was there a question? I can't see chat. I'm so sorry. I'm only screen sharing.
That's fine. It was part of the GitHub question as well, because there was a side note on that GitHub issue that Wit had linked to, where somebody had asked about Trafic as well. And
No, yeah. I think that person was just saying they're using Traffic and they would rather not.
Okay. I can mention real quickly, like, we're still working on Trafic 2.0. Yeah. I don't know if that's where you're going with that, but we haven't fleshed out if we're going to fully support it and how. But we do have an internal prototype. So if you are blocked there, please reach out and let us know. We can give you some more information. But I think What I will say is we're primarily pushing towards the ARC being the primary offering, but if you need to use traffic, you use it today. We're hoping to have a 2.0 solution there also. If there's any way I can share let me stop sharing this again and see if I can see chat. Easier.
So another question from Sumit is, what happens in the case while rolling the managed clustered certificate failed due to the cluster state being unhealthy? Would we expect an automated notification sent to us to reach out to Azure support to help resolve the issue? Or is there some other mechanism to handle these failure cases?
We're rolling the managed cluster that failed to cluster state being unhealthy. Well, I'll be honest, we haven't seen that yet, but what do we expect automated notifications? So we being the provider of this, we would get that automatic notification. I don't know if Umesh wants to add anything to that, but you shouldn't have to reach out to Azure support. We should get first line notice of this situation and correct it. And along that same vein, we're also looking at other auto kind of mitigation scenarios to buffer or prevent you from having to be in the loop, right? So say a VM fails as another kind of point of example, we want to try to take automation steps like reboot it on your behalf, maybe even refresh it if we have to, or repave it before we have to go reach out to the actual customer. So I would be glad to, it's a good question to help trying to think, present some more information on the public docs about though, because that's a really good question we should be in front of in the FAQ. I'll make a note of that. That was Sumit's question, correct, Sukanya?
Yeah, that's pretty much what we have. If you guys have any more questions, feel free to unmute your mic and then just go ahead and ask.
Hey, Mike. Sumit here. Hey. I have one last question. Mm-hmm. I think you were talking about when accelerated networking support would be available. I missed that, I think.
I don't have a definitive date. Sorry to say on that right now. I'm looking to see if we can pull that in this semester, which will mean something to you, but by the end of the year.
Thank you.
Anything else? Otherwise, we can open up to general Q&A. I think we're okay. If you want to take over against Sukanya, I'm not sure what else we have on agenda, but.
Well, we just wanted to quickly talk about, the upcoming schedule. So we do have an 8.2 release planned out for October timeframe. So we just rolled out the 8.1 CU1 release. It's actually rolling out as we speak. So, and the release notes for it is already published, which contains all the details of what were the fixes that went into it. We will, before October, we will try to publish a roadmap of what's coming up in 8.2. So that's definitely in the works. So if you have any questions regarding any of that, please go ahead and ask. Any specific questions, any general questions about either Service Fabric or Azure Service Fabric or Service Fabric managed clusters. If you have any questions, you can ask.
So I see a question in the chat from Whit there. Would you mind reading it out loud and then answering for the recording?
Sure.
Yeah, I can sum up real fast. Yeah, so you've got the built-in partition scaling by name, specify 0, 1, 2, 3. When the documentation suggests that says that when Service Fabric automatically scales this down, it will delete data off of whatever the partition is that's deleting without any kind of warning. Is any of that functionality exposed in the Fabric client or otherwise, so one can build their own scaling policies? Like to put in a hook to say, fire this method to move my data somewhere else before deleting that partition.
That is a great question. I don't think that such a feature exists, but I'll follow up and find out.
Great. Or I guess alternatively, do y'all plan to expose something? Instead of me rewriting the wheel, if y'all just expose something to say, here's an event, you've got 60 seconds to move everything somewhere else.
Yeah, we don't have any current plans of doing any such work towards name partitions being or regular partitions, for example. So to answer your question, no, but it's a good question. We can follow up on that. Okay, if there are no other questions, we can probably give back some of the time and wrap it up. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any further questions. We're happy to help answer the questions. As Mike mentioned, you can basically either choose to post your questions on GitHub and just tag us, and then we'll get back to you on those questions. We do have monthly community calls. Feel free, as part of the invite, we did share out a couple of links where if you want to see a particular topic, feel free to post your suggestions there, and we will try and address those topics as well in any future upcoming releases. So
I guess, just to jump in with one more question, is the Linux support planned for any of the upcoming managed releases?
Mike, do you want to take that one?
Hey, someone asked. So you did notice. So currently we've bumped it for not happening this year, but I'm glad to hear, I know you've expressed your use cases, but if you want to go ahead and reiterate them to me, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, they're just cheaper.
Yeah, they're cheaper.
There's mostly, you've mostly got parity between Linux and not. I guess I haven't seen a whole lot of work on the feature parity. Was it the chaos testing, some event logging? I thought there was a third one, but the Linux machines are just a lot cheaper. And if I use the Docker or component, I can load up Linux built images that I can't do on Windows.
I see. Okay.
So I can kind of just use the same cluster to just kind of manage everything instead of some things are running in containers over here, some things are running on VM scale sets. It's if they're all in one place, I can manage them all under one umbrella.
Okay. And I believe you filed an issue on that. If you want to just make sure that's captured the same way you just stated, that'd be great. I think you did, but
I can do that. I want me to just respond. I just found the one that you have in the
generic one.
Yeah, I want me to just add to that.
Yeah, please. To help +1 it. Yeah, and that'll help build some more use cases for this. So, like I said, it's really about how many people are waiting for X and Y, right? So right now the load balancing and networking scenarios have been the biggest demands. Yeah, and then with Linux, also if you can put in there 2004, okay, that's probably the general direction you've been to.
Yeah,
that'd be helpful information too. Or if you have a hard requirement for something older. Thank you.
Not specific, but yeah.
Okay, so if there are no other questions, we can wrap up for today's session. And again, thank you all for joining in. Really appreciate it. And feel free to reach out and make your questions available to us so that we can kind of get back to you on answers. Thank you again, everyone. Thank you, Unmesh, and thank you, Mike, for the demo and the detailed presentation on the SFMC refresh. Appreciate your time. So, Cesar,
No problem.
pretty much it.
Yeah, perfect. I'll just go ahead and thank everyone one more time for joining live and/or watching the recording. Thanks again, Service Fabric team, as always. And I think we'll see you all in the next one next month.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.